Cherise here, and it's time for my March bullet journal plan with me video. If you're new here, hello, welcome. So for this month in my bullet journal, get ready to see an art studio and houseplants theme with warm spring colors, some new spread layouts, and interactive trackers that you can try on your own journals as well. I was really inspired to work in my own little creative space that made me decide to create a theme out of it here. I know this whole setup already has a lot going on from the preview, especially with the illustrations, but don't worry, we're gonna go through each of them step by step. Let's start the setup with the cover page. I'm gonna be using my solid watercolors again to paint the illustrations. And by the way, all the supplies I'm using here as well as my discount codes are listed on the video description. As always, I sketched the composition first before painting and then secured the edges of the page with washi tapes. I started painting this fiddle leaf fig on the left. I followed Tiina of Tiina's Diaries way of painting the leaves back in her August setup last year. I just love the realistic look of her fiddle leaf fig painting in that setup. So here we're painting the leaves with 3 shades of green that I already prepared beforehand. I painted all the leaves with a light green first, and then I'm gonna layer one leaf at a time with a medium green while carefully leaving out the veins. I made sure to intensify my pencil sketch for this so I can see where the veins are because sometimes I just forget and just paint it fully. Using a small paintbrush is definitely recommended to make it easier. But another hack you can do is painting the leaves in full and just use a white gouache paint or white gel pen to draw the veins afterwards. On top of the medium green, I added a darker shade from the center as well as outlining the veins to make it pop a little bit more. Then I just continued the same technique to each of the leaves. You can also try to give your leaves different shapes and sizes to make the tree look more realistic. To separate the leaves from one another, I just picked up a little bit of black onto my brush and outlined the shape of the leaves. And then I painted the stem and the pot with a reddish orange color and added a darker tone for the shadows. Now we're gonna move on to the brick wall behind this fiddle leaf fig tree. I'm doing this simple abstract painting hanging on the wall first, just to give more art studio feel for this illustration. After that, we can then paint the bricks. I'm using 3 warm colors here as well, and I'm painting them alternately. There is also a space in between each of the bricks. I feel like I could have used a different color or a darker tone for the hanging painting so it would give a contrast and doesn't look like it's blending in with the wall, but I still like it anyway. The next element we're painting here is the canvas on an easel and a stool chair in front of it right in the center of the page. I think if not all, most art studio setups have these, so it's the best representation of the theme itself. I also do have an easel in a corner, but I haven't really painted something in a canvas with it, so it's currently on display right now, but I really wanted to try it someday when I have time. This theme actually reminds me of my March theme last year, which is a desk or workspace theme. And I used pretty much the same colors using the same medium. Looking back at it, I can definitely say I have learned so much and saw an improvement with how I use watercolors. And I'm also slowly building my own style. Before, my watercolor illustrations seemed really flat and no depth at all. Now I have learned that adding value is incredibly important in painting. This deals with the lightness or darkness of the colors, or to basically create the illusion of highlights and shadows. So you can see here that I add darker shades to some parts to create that illusion. So if you're practicing painting, you can try implementing this and you will immediately see an improvement. The next thing I painted in this image are the arched windows. I painted the inner shape with a light yellow color for the sunlight, and then I drew the grills with my black 005 fine liner. I opted to use this since I'm planning to paint it with black, so doing it with this was easier and straighter. Then I painted the frames with a beige color. In between the windows, I painted a hanging plant. I didn't think about making this detailed since the leaves are very small, but I just added a darker shade towards the base of each leaf. After that, I am painting this wall with this shade of green that I mixed just after painting the windows because I didn't know what color I wanted for it. I mixed green, umber, a touch of black, and then I added some white gouache. And I really liked the consistency. I honestly thought of using gouache for this whole setup, but I changed my mind just when I started filming because building a solid background like this is still a challenge for me as I often make it so streaky, and it's something I'm still wanting to improve at. Then I'm painting the floor with the umber color while also leaving a soft window shape for the reflection of the light and a darker color for the shadows behind the chair and under the easel. This painting is slowly coming together. I'm just gonna add a couple of houseplants here on a near distance. I don't really know what these plants are called. I just made them up and drew them like this. They do look like vegetables, and I didn't have to work on them as much as the fiddle leaf fig tree. For one last thing in this painting, it's this wooden drawer. This has definitely been one of the most time-consuming cover pages I've ever painted, but I think it's because improving my painting skills is a continuous process for me. It has made me need more time to build up each of the subjects in my illustrations. But when I finish the painting, I am writing the monthly title on the canvas using this Pentel Fude Touch sign brush pen in yellow ochre. I thought doing a brush font would suit the theme very well. And here's a satisfying part of this painting. It's time to peel off these washi tapes, and that is our cover page. Let's just complete this whole spread with a quote page on the other side. First, I am painting a simple portrait canvas with bricks on the corners. On the canvas, I'm writing a quote by Vincent van Gogh that says, "I dream of painting, and then I paint my dream." I also painted some swirls and a round shape for a little decoration on the canvas itself. And that's finally it for this whole cover spread. I know it seemed like an eternal painting this, but I'm really pleased with it and I hope you are too. But now let's move on to set up my combination of monthly calendar, goals, and focus spread. This layout is a new one I wanted to try this month. I started by cutting the right page into this Dutch door page. And before we write what it is for, let's paint the background first. The look of this painting will be a closer look of the canvas on an easel against the wall with the two windows similar to our cover page. I painted the windows first, then I'm painting some house plants on both sides of the canvas. On the left is a Calathea white fusion plant. This is such a beautiful house plant, but I think I went too far with the green because, as its name suggests, the leaves has like highlights on them. So let's just say I invented another variety of this plant. Kidding aside, I am implementing almost the same process we did with the Fiddle leaf fig tree, except that it has no veins. I also painted the leaf that overlaps this area here so that when I flip the other side of the Dutch door, I will still be seeing the full painting. On the right side is another plant, and I'm not sure what it is called. Sorry, I just randomly drew this long-stemmed plant with long and round leaves. I painted them with light and dark green for some contrast. After that, we can then paint the easel. I'm using a light brown for the base and then slowly build it up with a darker shade for some shadows. I'm also using the same dark shade to add the details and the wood patterns. This time, I decided to change the color of the wall into this mixture of umber and white paint. So I just went ahead and painted the negative spaces except the middle areas. Now it's time to move on to the center of the spread. Since we have a Dutch door layout here, let's set up first the calendar side. I just wrote again the monthly title with the same brush lettering style on top of this space. Since the spread already has a heavy illustration, I decided to go for minimal calendar layout by just drawing 5 simple horizontal lines for each week. And then for the dates, I painted tiny round colored backgrounds. I am supposed to have 4 colors alternately here, but I miscounted it and it's unnoticeable anyway, so that's perfectly fine. The page next to it will be a space for me to write down some important events and notes. On the other side of the Dutch door will be for my main focus and goals spread. I really liked my focus and goals layout this February, so I tried to create a similar layout here. I'll have 3 main focus to write on the left, and then the goals with corresponding actions to be taken will be listed down on the right side. But that is it for this monthly calendar, focus, and goals Dutch door layout. And then let's move on to the next spread. On this page will be my currently list, which is again inspired by Ashlea of Real Paper Pages on Instagram. I used this collection in February and I wanted to create a page for it again this month. It is a simple overview of what we are currently doing in a particular month. I am painting the decorations first, and this one is a flat lay image of some paint tubes, paint brushes, palette, and some more that will be extended later on to the other side of the spread. It's basically an organized way of what my workspace would look like when I'm painting something. So for this currently list, I thought this vertical paint palette would be an awesome layout for it. I painted my handmade ceramic paint palette that I currently have, but this time with only 5 wells. On each well, I'm writing what I'm currently loving, learning, watching, anticipating, and manifesting for the month of March. And if you would like to create something like this in your own bullet journal, you can definitely add or change the words, such as what it is you are currently working on, reading, and so on. And you can also add some more wells if you would like to follow this paint palette layout. On the page next to it is another idea I had in mind for this theme. I thought it would be cool to do some paint swatches and use them for my habit trackers. This will be an interactive one, so I took one of these handmade papers and turned it into a pocket that will hold these watercolor papers that I already cut and ripped off the edges for some nice soft look. I'm using 160 GSM watercolor paper so it doesn't feel bulky. You can also use some cutouts from your journal instead that can handle watercolors. That would work as well. And then on each of the sheets, I'm swatching 6 of the colors from my paint palette or the colors I'm using in this setup. I made sure to leave a space at the bottom to write my habits down. And then on the back, I'm drawing the layout itself, which are round shapes for all the days of the month. I'm using this Notebook Therapy 2-key stencil. It has several useful templates, and it has the circle one that I need for the perfect shapes. Just make sure as well to draw a pencil guideline so that all the shapes are aligned. Then on the bottom right of this pocket, I just simply wrote the Habit Trackers title. On top of the Habit Trackers / paint swatches is the art piece itself in this workspace. I am painting some more houseplants like snake plants, another fiddle leaf fig tree, and Calathea orbifolia on this postcard art print-like size. There will be 4 potted houseplants in this painting. 2 of them are sitting on top of chairs so that it has a nice balance with the ones that are just standing on the floor. Then I'm painting the background as well with the umber and white paint mixture. You can actually leave it white and just draw the frame if you're happy without the background. And that's pretty much it for this whole currently list and interactive habit trackers. I think this might be one of my favorite ideas I have come up with. It's quite a work to do to rip off separate pages for it, but I honestly enjoyed it anyway. Now let's flip through to the next pages, and this time I am making the decorations a bit easier than the previous ones. I am drawing first the layout for my content planner on the upper left page. This layout is quite similar from my content planner last month. Some of you guys asked if the space in this layout is enough for me. My answer would be yes, because over the time I've made myself get used to writing abbreviations or shortcuts instead of writing the content or tasks in full, because I'm sure I will be able to understand it anyway because I wrote it. Sometimes it also depends on my mood, but if I were to do a journal entry or like a diary style of writing, I think that's when I'll probably use some more space. I actually included an extra page in the end of this setup to give you an idea of what I mean later on. Under this content planner is my socials tracker. I just doodled the icons of my social handles that I want to track using my brush pens, and a space to write down the stats of each followers from the start and end of the month. On the left corner, I am painting a top view of the same house plant that we painted from the monthly calendar. So the steps are just the same when painting, but I try to change the angle of the leaves so it shows the top view better, and then the soil and pot beneath. I also painted the background with gray so it looks like the floor, and to also tie it with the next illustration. On the next page to it will be my playlist. I drew the same box like the content planner. Then I'm using this washi tape from the washi tape shop's In Bloom set for a little decoration inside it, which is perfect for the theme because it has some houseplants doodles. I also cut out this butterfly design. It is not on theme, but it's okay as well. I went for a different layout for this playlist. It's not a typical playlist layout with the play buttons. I just wrote the songs and the artists around it and randomly wrote some track numbers. I wrote the playlist title just above the box as well. We still have a space left here, and we're painting a person kneeling down and a paintbrush on her hand with some cans of paints. It's like she's ready to play with her paints and create a huge artwork. As you may have noticed too, I have started a new sketchbook and I designed the inside cover with art materials. I would say my sketchbook and the prompts I have set for myself definitely helped me get inspired and think of new ideas for my bullet journal. So I won't be surprised if some of my monthly setups will be somehow related to my sketchbook prompts. And that is all for my content planner and playlist pages. Now let's proceed to the final pages in this whole setup. I'm cutting out 3 pages into Dutch doors again for my weeklies. I also kept tabs for each Dutch door. And then I'm using another design from the In Bloom washi tape set that I attached on the edge of the last page that will be seen behind the tabs. I cut the Dutch door a little wider than the washi tape, and there was a white space in between, so I decided to paint a thick vertical green line for that. I painted the tabs with different colors from my palette, then I started laying out my first weekly. I just used 6 simple boxes with round backgrounds for the days. And before we do the last painting, let's quickly do a gratitude log or gratitude journal in the last page. This is a space for me to write down some monthly affirmations, highlights, and of course what I am grateful for this month. So this is where I'm gonna be doing some journal writing like I mentioned, And since there are 5 weeks in March, I thought it would be a great opportunity to add an extra page idea in a layout like this. I still have a page next to it blank, but I'm thinking of painting something on it later in the month. But yeah, let's now do our last illustration in this setup. My main inspiration for this painting is this picture of a girl sitting down on the floor while painting her abstract pieces. I started from the easiest part, which is the wall, window, and a little house plant. Then I moved on to paint the girl. She's wearing a handkerchief or a turban around her hair. I like the combination of red and blue in the actual picture, so I'm doing a little wet on wet technique here. The area is small anyway, so I didn't worry about it bleeding through the page. Blue is not in my color palette for this month's setup, but we can always include a little bit of that. And I added a tint of green to her denim jumper pants. It is hard for me to draw a wrinkled clothing as well, but then again, focusing on values can be implemented here, so I added darker shades on the areas based on what I see in the picture. Painting the abstract artworks were an easy one too, but when it came to the floor and the curtains, I realized I used similar colors. Then I emphasized the light source in this picture, which is coming from the window here, to make it look more natural and realistic. Of course, the houseplant is one of the main characters in this theme, so I am painting another huge fiddle leaf fig tree on the right hand side of the painting. In the end, I still went for a green wall here, so I just layered the gray one that we painted from the get-go. On this wall, I'm also writing March again in the same font. And that's finally everything for my March 2022 bullet journal setup. This has definitely been my most time-consuming painting-heavy bullet journal setup at this point, and my longest plan with me video ever. But I hope you found some new layout ideas and illustration inspirations that you might like to paint as well in your sketchbooks or bullet journals. Or if you're not bullet journaling, I hope you enjoyed watching me create my spreads. I am so happy with the end result, and I'm excited to use them. I would heartfully appreciate if you leave your thoughts about this setup in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video. Thank you all so much for joining me today. Have the loveliest day, and I will see you in my next one. Bye everyone!